Yo, what's good YouTube? It is your host Sage D Samurai here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm here to bring you guys a new what if. This being what if Deku was Shisui's reincarnation. Guys, thank you all so much for tuning into this what if, as this was another new what if idea. And honestly, I'm really glad to try it out, and hopefully, you guys will enjoy. By the way, yesterday my voice it sort of gave out a little bit because of how long I've been I was going into the what if yesterday, and yeah, it was not comfortable at all. So if you guys hear me skip over details, like some pretty mid-tier details, I apologize for that. But that's mostly due to the fact I don't want to stress my voice out making these videos. I like doing them, but I'm not ready to lose my voice.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright guys, I'm just gonna jump right into this. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and if you guys can ignore any background noise, I would appreciate it. So let's begin. At this, we now currently turn our attention to a young Deku. We will see the boy currently standing in front of 3 bullies, and one of them being Bakugou, as he was currently protecting a young child who currently right now was sniffling after Bakugou had kicked some sand onto him. Bakugou, that's enough, alright? He's just a kid, dude. Leave him alone. At this, Bakugou would then look at Deku before laughing. Please, as if some quirkless nobody's gonna tell me what to do, Deku, he would say as he looks at him. At this, Deku sighed as this is when he then hardened his expression. Bakugou, I'm giving you one last warning. Leave the kid alone. Haven't you already started enough? I'm telling you, ever since you got that quirk, you've gotten a big head. At this, Bakugou ends up laughing once again. Fine, you can protect that squirrel all you want, Deku. Because I'll gladly endure as I beat the crap out of you. Hearing this, Bakugou's cronies will then also begin to activate their quirks, to which Deku sighs. Alright, bring it. At this, Bakugou and as well as the rest of his cronies would then try to attack Deku, but this is when suddenly Deku's eyes would then flash red. And in the next moment, Bakugou and his friends would then freeze up before collapsing down to the ground unconscious. The boy who was watching all this will be amazed as he will look at Deku with an admired gaze. You're amazing, the kid would say as he looks at Deku. At this, Deku would then smile at the boy before patting him on the head, asking him what he was doing out here, to which the boy said he was just here to play for a little bit, and Deku would ask if he can join him. So with that, Deku would then play with the boy, making the kid feel better after getting picked on. And after that, Deku would then walk back to his classroom, saying goodbye to the boy, as recess will then come to an end. Eventually, a teacher did end up picking up Bakugou as well as the rest of his cronies, as they decided to take them to the infirmary, not knowing why they fell unconscious. As Deku would see them get taken away, he can do nothing more but shake his head, as he begins to walk back to his classroom. As he does, he begins to think back about his time here. And to think, it's only been 2 years since I last found out I was reincarnated, he would think. As this is where we're now getting a flashback. 2 years. Currently right now, Deku was 8 years old. But flashing back to 2 years, he was 6. Now, Deku at 6 years old was the day that he had found out. Found out that he had been reincarnated. Because you see, before, there was Izuku Midoriya. There was Shisui Uchiha, aka Shisui the Teleporter. Now, the man had no idea how exactly he was reincarnated. Heck, he didn't even know why he was reincarnated. But he did know one thing. This was his new life. He couldn't change the fact. And even if he could, even if he wanted to reverse it, it was impossible. Now, I do believe he had tried it a couple of times, but in the end of the day, it didn't work out. And he came to accept that eventually that this was him. This was his new life. But to say that it was all bad, well, would definitely be a lie. You see, after finding out about his reincarnation, Shisui began to go through his life as Izuku Midoriya, and he quite honestly enjoyed his life. Going every day, waking up to a kind mother who was serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and not only that, but having a welcoming home. Although there was one thing that Shisui did not like, it was the fact of his father. The man was barely home. In fact, he was never home. Shisui didn't even remember the last time he even got to see his father's face, if he ever even got a chance. So due to that, Shisui felt a little bit upset with his father, but he decided that it didn't matter. After all, he was here, and he would take care of his mother, like a good old son. So after spending through the years here, Shisui began to grow up and mature, as a typical child would. During the time, he began to eventually get transferred into a school, and eventually over time, he begins to make friends with the kids. Now, many of the kids begin to see Shisui as this older brother, as he was pretty much this guy who was very mature for his age, He gave like a lot of like insightful opinions, and overall, every kid in the class liked him. Even Bakugou, who especially admired him. The way he was cool, calm, and collected, yet stayed humbled and stayed respectful, it was inspiring to him. It was as if he was hanging out with an actual big brother, like they were blood related. However, one day would change that. The day that Bakugou had gotten his quirk, and Deku didn't get his. The day that Bakugou got his quirk, he was exploding from the palm of his hands, and everyone around was complimenting him. One of them actually being Deku. However, unlike the other, he wasn't just like, pretty much like complimenting him, saying like he was like the best gift for everyone. No, he was complimenting him as a regular brother would. He was telling Bakugou that he had quite great potential. However, he also told him that with that power, he also needs to learn control. Now, hearing this, Bakugou would then shake out of his like daze as he looks at Deku before scoffing. And who exactly are you to tell me what to do? Huh, knowing you, you'll probably end up getting a trash quirk anyway, Deku, he would say. Now, this will cause Deku to actually look at the boy, wondering what happened to him. Eventually, in the next following day, Deku would then be taken in for an exam, as this is where he gets revealed that he was quirkless. At this, Inko would look at the man in shock, as she would try to argue, saying that like maybe they can take the test again or something, but Deku would then shake his head, telling his mother that it was fine. It's fine, after all, there's many of opportunity, and besides, just because I'm quirkless does not mean I'm useless, and I'd much rather be quirkless than useless. Now, hearing this, Inko would look at her boy, feeling proud for him, as she would give him a hug and tell him that either it doesn't matter if he had a quirk or not, at the end of the day, he would do something great. However, little did Inko know how right she would be. As moving on forward, we will see Deku during his time growing up. He didn't just spend time like enjoying his childhood. No, even though Deku did have a peaceful life, he also began to take information on this world. He found out about heroes. He found out about villains. He found out as much as he could on this world, and honestly, he could just see how vastly different it was from his old life in Konoha. However, at the end of the day, they were still centered around one thing. There was always good. And of course, when there's good, there's of course going to be bad. So without any hesitation, at a young age, Deku already began training himself. At first, it took him a while to unlock his chakra, since here in this world, the physics were quite weird and very different to how it was in his old life. However, eventually, after some trial and error, he would eventually end up unlocking his chakra, although it was way weaker compared to how he had it before. It was mostly due to the fact that he was an Uchiha back then, but now he wasn't. However, there was one thing that was surprising to Shisui as he unlocked his chakra, was the fact almost instantaneously as he did, his eyes also began to light up as things began to slow down around him. He realized that even though he wasn't an Uchiha, he still had the Sharingan. Now this was a shocking realization to Shisui, but he was happy. After all, even though he got the Sharingan, this means that even in this world, he can still try to explore his full potential. He didn't get that opportunity back then, but now he's finally gotten a chance. And he was going to make use of it. So during the following years and during his time growing up, Shisui had trained his body and also had trained with the power of the Sharingan, as right now he was currently at 2 Tomoes during the time he got to check to his quirks. And after that day, Shisui just continued on getting stronger. As Shisui would continue growing up and getting stronger, there was also another thing he realized, as that was the fact that as he was growing up and changing, every other kid was growing up and changing as well. Back then, although still like a lot of kids still like look up at Shisui as he's like an older brother, some people change. People like Bakugou. Now, Deku had no idea how it happened. Maybe because of the fact of his overconfidence, or maybe because of the fact of how he unlocked his quirk. He didn't know, but for some reason, Bakugou became overconfident, arrogant, as Bakugou growing up begins to think of himself as if the greatest thing to ever been created. He begins to mock people who are weak and don't have powerful abilities like him, and the person he likes to mock the most is Deku. He begins to laugh at Deku, calling him pathetic as he couldn't even believe he saw this guy as an older brother. He mocks Deku, saying the fact that with that he would always be useless and he would never be better than him. But Deku didn't care about it. He wasn't trying to compete with Bakugou. After all, so far the only thing he wanted to do was just do good. That was it. But Bakugou didn't see it that way. In fact, if anything, he seemed in his mind, he seemed to think of Deku as a rival or something like that. So due to that, whenever Bakugou got the chance, he would try throwing like light jabs at Deku, throwing insults at him and trying to piss him off. But Deku, like I said, he's Shisui, and he's not going to get angered that easily. However, there was during one time where Deku just couldn't take it anymore, as this is where I ended up seeing that Bakugou during the time, instead of just like insulting people, he began to actually bully some people. And it became so much that Deku couldn't just stand by anymore. And now, of course, he usually just stopped Bakugou right before he got the chance. But now it's getting to the point where Bakugou would just outgoingly just attack like people out of nowhere, especially him. And it got to the point where Deku would just couldn't stand for it. So due to that, each time Bakugou tried to start up something, Deku would be right there. As a responsible older brother, he would make sure to keep Bakugou in check. However, Bakugou didn't see it that way. In fact, he sees it as Deku challenging his authority and Deku mocking him. And Bakugou, not wanting to be looked down on, of course challenged this, as he always tried picking a fight with Deku since that day. As after clearing up all this origin, we can now move on forward to the future. Time skip, as we now turn to see Deku at 14 years old. Him and Bakugou were currently right now in the same class, as Bakugou was currently throwing a ruckus as many people were pissed off after Bakugou had told them that their quirks were useless. Now the teacher had just announced that Bakugou was actually signing up to be at UA, to which Bakugou nodded, saying that he was definitely going to end up being inside there, saying that he was going to become the #1 hero, even better than All Might. However, as he says this, many of the kids look at him with doubt. #1 hero? That's a lot of big talk coming from someone who couldn't even beat Deku. And besides, everyone knows if anyone has a chance of becoming the #1 hero, I definitely believe it was going to be him, as many of the kids begin to look at Deku. Now, Deku, although he kept it low-key and honestly was like a chill person, in fact, a lot of people in the classroom enjoyed Deku. He still, during the time of growing up, he still had like this big brotherly like aura. So due to that, many of the kids respect him, and many of the kids just get along with him. And even though Deku was presumed as quirkless, many kids didn't even believe that. As whenever Bakugou were to start up a fight, Deku would be right there, and he would instantly beat Bakugou in an instant. And the craziest thing about it was the fact he never once touched Bakugou in his life. Never. It was always Bakugou would then attack Deku, and the next minute he will be out on the ground, passed out, and foaming at the mouth. As many of them wonder exactly how Deku was doing it, and some of them even became brave enough to ask Bakugou what happened, but even Bakugou himself didn't know what happened. He just fell unconscious, causing many people to actually wonder exactly what type of power does Deku have, or maybe he does have a quirk but just kept it hidden. So many secrets, but they decided to respect his privacy. After all, they didn't need to suspect Deku. After all, he was a good person. As the teacher of the class would see Bakugou flaunting his, powerful quirk and everything, he would then begin to read off the list once again before smiling. Ah, I see, young Izuku. It looks like you're also planning to go to UA. Now hearing this, many people of the class would then look at Deku as they all begin to smile and actually cheer for Deku. Man, Deku, go ahead and show them what you got. Yeah, definitely. As many people begin to cheer for him, Deku just raised his head, shaking his head, telling them that it was fine. And yeah, he's actually very interested to go there. Especially if the rumors are true, Deku would say. As he had read up on many rumors, as he found that the internet was actually very useful. Now, unlike in his olden time, like in the Shinobi era, back then, here in this area, it was way more advanced. And due to that, Deku was actually able to collect a lot of information. And that combined with the Sharingan, Deku's mind was pretty much like an encyclopedia to nearly everything. Nearly everything. And thanks to the internet, Deku had found out about a rumor that All Might was actually going to be a teacher at UA. And he was very interested in meeting the man. Now, he didn't mean like he just wanted to ask the man a question. No, he just wanted to just see the man who has so much power. Although, if Deku were to be honest, he felt like even at this point now, he would definitely be able to beat All Might. The man's abilities were very straightforward, but that didn't mean that Deku did not respect his power. And just thinking about it, Deku would nod his head, already thinking about just what type of man he was. However, while doing so, Deku would then begin to feel his senses flare up, sighing as he already knew what was coming. Deku! Bakugou would then shout as he rushes over at Deku, trying to hit his desk by hitting it with an explosion. But this is when Deku would then look up at him, and in an instant he activates the Sharingan before deactivating it, causing Bakugou's body to once again fall limp, and causing him to crash down to the ground right beside him. Again, why does he keep doing this? Deku would think. as he looks at Bakugou with a slightly annoyed expression. This is when Bakugou's cronies will then walk up, apologizing to Deku, to which Deku shakes his head, telling him it's fine, and asking if they need any help, to which they shake their head, saying that it was their pleasure to help out. And hearing that, Deku would just nod his head, as this is where we now see class end. Now, finally, that the class had now finished, Deku would be walking back home, taking a path under the bridge. While doing so, he'd be listening to some music, as he had found to really enjoy music in this world. As just as he was currently walking down and vibing, this was when he once again senses an attack approaching. At this, he then jumps away to see this ginormous sludge-like arm try reaching for him, as Deku would then hop a few steps away to see this ginormous sludge green type monster end up appearing. "Hey kid, I hope you don't mind, but can I use your body?" he says. At this, Deku would then look at the man before giving him a smile. "Sorry, but I'm gonna have to say a no on that. You're not exactly my type, buddy." Hearing this, the man just laughs. "Huh, cheeky brat, don't we? Well then, unfortunately, it's not your choice." The sludge monster tries to attack Deku, but Deku would end up dodging out the way, as this is when the man would try attacking him again, but to his surprise, Deku would then vanish. What? At this, he would then look around as he doesn't see Deku. However, unaware to him, Deku was currently above him, as he currently right now was using chakra to stick to the walls of the bridge that he was currently on. Deku would then suddenly end up shooting off a ginormous fireball from his mouth. "Fire style, fireball jutsu," Deku would shout. At this, the fireball would end up hitting the man, causing him to scream out in pain as he was legit burned to a crisp, leaving nothing left, as Deku would stare down at him with cold eyes. "I apologize. Hopefully you turn out better in the next life," Deku would say as he looks down at the sludge monster or guy coldly. As after that, Deku would then suddenly end up falling off like the roof of the bridge, and as he does, he ends up landing down on the ground gracefully. After that, Deku would then collect his stuff as he begins to walk back home, but as he does, he ends up sensing another presence and prepares for an attack, only to see All Might make his appearance known. "I am here to see that the villain has gone away again," he would say, as he doesn't see even a trace of the sludge monster or the sludge villain. However, he does see many burn marks all around and one kid standing in the center of it. "Hey kid, did you cause this?" At this, Deku looks around to see, as this is when he then looks at All Might and shakes his head, saying that he didn't do it at all. "Hey, I hope you don't mind asking, but you're All Might, right?" At this, All Might would then nod his head, saying that he was, but this is when suddenly he begins to cough up a little bit and realize he was running out of time. "Shoot, I think you should start investing in a sidekick at this point. With that injury, as well as the fact of how much you're exerting that power, you'll be landing closer and closer to death. I think it's about time you start investing for some backup." Now, hearing this, All Might's eyes would go wide as he looks at Deku, only to see the boy no longer there. "What? Where did he go?" At this, All Might looks everywhere, but he doesn't see him, as he just wonders exactly who that boy was, and if possible, did he know his secret? That boy, just who is he? He would think. However, he didn't have enough time to think about it, as his time was almost running up and the sludge monster was supposedly still on the loose, so he then gets up and prepares to look around. However, as he does, he ends up running out of time, so he just lands on a roof and cools down. So we now turn our attention to Deku, as after that day, a following time skip with them begins to occur. Deku begins to train for his time in UA, and during that time, he begins pushing his Sharingan even further, turning it into the 3 Tomoe and actually getting it really close to getting to the manga kill. However, he still needed one more push to get there. While he was doing so, he also trained up with his elements, as he still had his old elements and as well as a few new ones. The old elements were fire and wind and lightning. The new ones were, of course, earth and water. With these elements combined, he began to train up with them, actually adding a few more techniques, and due to this, he was actually already looking quite strong. Now, while doing this, he also begins to imagine what his hero costume should be, as he didn't want his hero costume to be like everyone else's. Sure, I mean, to them they look cool and everything, but Deku, he's not really someone for like a whole flashy display. He's a shinobi after all. And while during this time, Deku was not only purely focusing on his chakra, he was also focusing on his physical strength and techniques. He began to learn a lot of his old life skills, as well as the fact he also trained in his sword, as he had picked up a katana. Now this of course actually took like a lot of work, considering here like for a young age to have like a katana, like it's not very well known. And besides, katanas are quite dangerous and everything. But then again, this is a world full of superpowers, so eh. So after getting a katana, Deku would actually be returned back as he began practicing his sword skills. Now back then he used to run like this small little dagger, but now he was actually running a full-blown katana, which was way heavier. But thanks to Deku's training, his size, and as well as the fact like how bulky his body was, he was able to easily carry it around as well as swing it as if it was nothing more but a small little knife. As eventually, after a while and after many time skips, it was finally time for the UA exams. Now Deku would actually be there walking out, as along with him he was also be carrying a katana that was strapped to his side, and as he was walking, many kids would actually be looking at him. Some of the girls were looking at him because, this man Deku, he got the look, bro. He got the drip. This man was rocking a black and red jacket, long black pants, and of course some black forces, of course, because I gotta make the man drippy. While doing this, Deku was also listening to his music, and as he does, he could already sense like an attack approaching. Again, it's been many months and he's still doing this. Deku would sigh as he dodges out of the way of an explosion from Bakugou. Deku, you bastard! How can you do this? Why are you even here? At this Bakugou begins complaining to Deku, asking him like why is he here and everything, but Deku ignores him as he casually walks into the exam, and having enough of Bakugou screaming, he then looks at him in the eyes, acting the Sharingan slightly, causing Bakugou to fall unconscious once again, and plummeting face first into the ground. Deku would sigh as he tried over the time skip to actually try connecting with Bakugou once again, as after all he was a big brother. So of course he tried giving Bakugou advice, like helping his training, but Bakugou would not want it as he pretty much treated Deku like shit. And each time Deku would try, at least talking to him like a person, he would try violently attacking Deku, causing him to pull him into unconsciousness. Deku would sigh as he remembers those memories as a kid, as he would look at Bakugou's body before, picking up the boy with one hand, surprising everyone, and walking into the exam hall, sighing and shaking his head. No matter how much you mature or no matter how powerful you get, you're still as foolish as always, Deku would sigh, shaking his head. So we now move on, as eventually we end up turning to see President Mike. Deku had just dropped Bakugou on a random seat, and after that he was just sitting down, looking and paying attention to the announcements. And after that, he would eventually be taken to the area we're going to be taking the exams. There were apparently many robots there to which Deku would have to destroy, and Deku hearing this was already prepared for the journey. At this, begins to do his regular warm-up, stretching out his muscles as much as he could. Now while doing so, Deku would then look to see a girl, as she currently right now was looking at the arena and beginning to doubt herself as she seemingly was afraid. I should probably go talk to her, he would say. At this, Deku would then begin to walk over to the girl, but this is when suddenly Ida would then get in the way. Look, I already know you're trying to sabotage that girl, Ida would say as he looks at Deku. Now at this, Deku would look at Ida confused. I'm not trying to sabotage her, I'm trying to help her out. She looks terrified. At this, Ida would then shake his head. What, and you think I'm going to believe that for a second? Go on and leave her alone. At this, Deku wanted to argue more, but he already knew that this would cause a scene, so he sighed as he backs off, with Ida nodding his head yeah, I told him off, yeah, he did it. As eventually Deku would return back to his spot and pay attention, this is when suddenly a horn would then blare, announcing the beginning of the exam. Instantly, Deku would then kick off with a blitz of speed, legit teleporting in front of 3 robots, as with an instant and a swift slash from his katana, the 3 robots would then end up getting destroyed in an instant, surprising everyone. So fast, many people would say, especially Ida, as he couldn't believe it. I just saw him right there. He vanished. Does he have a teleporting quirk? As Ida wondered this is when Deku would then begin to teleport all around the entire battlefield. He begins to slash apart robots, earning multiple points, and easily getting top score. As everyone else was watching, this is when President Mike would then shout, telling them that he was waiting for them to go, to which this will cause everyone to start rushing ahead, already knowing that if they don't, they'll instantly be left behind and kicked out of UA, which they definitely don't want. As eventually, after taking out a bunch of robots, Deku would then suddenly settle down, as he decides to sit down on a roof watching everyone and their powers and abilities. Thanks to the Sharingan, Deku actually begins to analyze these abilities, and honestly I have to admit, the way some people used them was very impressive. I have to admit, these guys definitely have potential. Even that guy from before, he would say, as he looks at Ida kicking the robot down in an instant before blitzing off at more powerful speeds. And Deku had to admit, the guy definitely had power to his name, that was for sure. However, as he does, he would then begin to feel the ground begin to shake. At this, Deku looks around as he then looks up to see a ginormous robot that begin to get released as it begins to destroy most of the town, or the fake town at least. Seeing this, many of the kids begin to run away as this was a 0-pointer. And just as they do, Deku, using the power of the Sharingan, would then begin to see as one of the girls, that the girl from earlier who was nervous, was actually trapped under the rubble and was struggling to get out. Seeing this, Deku instantly blitzed into action. He would appear right in front of the girl as in an instant, he ends up actually lifting up the rubble and pulling her out of there before teleporting back and putting her safely down on the roof. Stay here, alright? I'm gonna go take care of this thing. At this, the girl, who we soon find out is Uraraka, will look at this in surprise as Deku would then suddenly end up teleporting before appearing right in front of the machine. Now, many people who were running away would actually see this guy and they're in shock. What, is this guy insane? That thing is ginormous. There's no way that he can even hit that thing. That guy's dead for sure. At this, everyone was watching this while Ida would be amazed. I thought he was playing a sabotager, but he definitely has the strength to carry on. And here I am running away like a coward. And this Ida will look on as well as everyone else, as Deku would look at the ginormous beast as it would try swinging its robotic fist at Deku. Deku's hand would then erupt with electricity. Now at this, Deku would then begin to use chakra and turning it into a weaker version of the Chidori. Shisui would sigh as he actually remembered this technique from one of the original prodigies, aka this being Kakashi. He'd seen him in action as he actually performed the technique, however, he never really got a good chance to find out exactly how he did it. It's really hard to actually hold it in, but it should be enough. At this, Itachi would then slam down his palm, as you can call this jutsu for now Lightning Palm. However, the attack did its job as it begins to short circuit and actually fry the machine itself, causing it to explode from different areas. Seeing this, Shisui would then have a smile on his face before he ends up teleporting away and returning back to the rooftop where Uraraka would watch everything in shock. The big explosion would cause shockwaves all around, as Deku would end up grabbing Uraraka and end up teleporting her down right in front of everyone, as he would casually leave her there. And as he does, he ends up looking around to see that everyone was looking at him. I hope you enjoyed the show, Deku would say as he looks at them with a smile. At this, no one said anything before they started erupting with praise and cheering for Deku as they were amazed for what they saw. Unbelievable! That was incredible. How did you do that? At this, Deku begins to get a large following as many people begin to cheer for him, asking him questions about how he did that, to which Deku can do nothing more but answer, embarrassed about how everything turned out. I guess I took it a little bit too far, he would say, as this is where we end up having a time skip. So after that following day and Deku's achievement, he would eventually end up getting called out and getting sent an email from UA itself. After that, he ends up getting the message from All Might, who tells Deku that he has been granted entry into UA, causing him to smile and also causing his mother to actually cheer for her son. To which, by the way, since Deku did not despair and since he didn't have a quirk, and since the fact that Deku actually helped her out a lot, Inko did not fall into that type of depression and gain weight, so she's still as thin as she was before. Just wanted to let you guys know, show some support to your mothers, of course, fiction or not. But moving on, we eventually now turn to the day where Deku actually enters into UA. The boy would end up arriving at his class as he will see this ginormous door and just wonder why exactly did they have to make this door this big. As Deku would sigh as he enters into the classroom, he would see Bakugou, who currently right now was arguing with Ida, as well as all the kids there, before suddenly he ends up becoming the center of the attention. Hello. Instantly, everyone begins to gasp as they look at Deku. It's him! At this, everyone begins looking at Deku, crowding over him. I begin to explain how cool he was. Now, Deku would actually be surprised at this sudden popularity, but he then realized that during the exam, he actually scored first place, and it was shocking. As everyone around began to compliment Deku, saying how amazing he was, to which Deku would try downplaying himself, telling them that he wasn't, but they didn't care as he really they were admiring him. And while doing so, Bakugou gets pissed off. I was just the center of attention. Why does he end up getting all the attention now? All because he did a little bit good in an exam? Doesn't matter, I'll show them all. I'm 10,000 times better than him. No, 1,000,000,000 times better. As Bakugou will be glaring angrily at Deku, this is when we then see Uraraka enter the class, and as soon as she sees Deku, she ends up smiling as she runs up to him, thanking him over and over again for helping her out, to which Deku ends up like shaking his head, telling her that it was all fine. As both of them begin to talk to each other, as well as Ida, as he begins to apologize to Deku, this is when suddenly they end up sensing a presence, or Deku at least, as they end up turning around to see a man who currently right now was in a sleeping bag in the middle of the hallway. Good, looks like all you guys are here. It's finally time for us to begin. At this, everyone would be in shock, as this is when we end up getting the reveal of Aizawa. As after exiting out his sleeping bag and presenting himself as their homeroom teacher, Aizawa would then begin to explain to them about the exam. And as he does, he also ends up giving them one final warning. By the way, for these exams, I'm just going to let you know right now, if you guys don't pass, you will be immediately dropped from the program. Hearing this, it will cause everyone to be shocked, but Deku, instead of actually being afraid, would end up smiling. Now this is getting interesting, he would say, as we will see Deku's eyes flash red, just excited of the prospect of a new challenge. So what do you guys think is going to happen in the next part? How do you guys think Deku's going to do in the exams? And overall, how do you guys think this story is going to be? It's your host, Seiji Samurai, and I thank you all so much for tuning in. My gosh, I'm really glad to have made this video for y'all. I mean, seriously, getting the part out in general for today was difficult, considering the fact that, well, I got home pretty late today, and I got sidetracked with a little bit of interesting news, so yeah. But then again, thank you all so much for your support. You guys have been amazing with it, as usual. And I know some people are like, bro, can you stop saying it or anything? But I can't help it. Like, I do really appreciate it, you know? I'm sorry, it's just the way I am. But besides that, I do not want to hold you guys back any longer. After all, this video has gone on for long enough. And honestly, I'm really glad for how it turned out to be. Looking forward for the next part as well. So if you guys are here to stick by and enjoy this journey, well then, you prepare for more, because this what if is going to be fire. That's the least I can tell you. For me personally, I'm going to enjoy making this what if, and hopefully you guys will be there to enjoy the journey as well. But besides all this, I believe it's time for us to end this what if. So it's your host, Seiji Samurai, and he's signing off. Peace, and have a lovely day.